I started a brand new Shopify store and we hit our 100th sale in just 10 short days. And in today's video, I'm going to be breaking down exactly how we did that, what products we chose, how we did our marketing, and most importantly, how you can recreate these same kind of results in your own store. Let's get into it. Now, the first step for starting any Shopify store is obviously figuring out what kind of products you want to sell. And for me, I've done over $25 million in e-commerce sales going back the better part of a decade. So it's a pretty easy decision for me at this point, but I want to break down some of the logic behind why I choose the products that I do. And so when I'm evaluating the products that I want to sell in my store, I consider a couple of main factors. First and foremost is the demand. And I look around to see, are other people buying these products in the market? Are there other sellers? Are there other competitors which indicate that, there's actually a market for these products? And the reason it's so important to make sure that there's demand, and as obvious as this may sound, it is such a crucial step that when I was starting out, I violated this in so many different ways. The first store that I ever launched was just filled with products that I thought were great. And, they looked good. Like, one of the products was like these silk wrap bracelets that I thought people would love. But when I actually went to launch the store, I ended up getting next to zero sales. And when I really dove into the numbers, it wasn't really anything with the Shopify site or the Facebook ads, that I just hadn't done the research. And so nowadays, the very first thing that I do when I'm evaluating any kind of product is to make sure that there is a viable market and lots of demand for these products. And more than that, I want to make sure that there's a way that I can differentiate myself, because I'm no longer interested in just making, a drop ship quick buck. I want to make an actual long-term brand that I can build and ultimately sell, like I've done with History Tees and Yoga Stay. Here's a press release from Open Store talking about both of those sales. That's the end result that I'm shooting for nowadays. The second thing that I'm looking for in evaluating the product is the amount of capital that it's going to take for me to get this thing off the ground. And especially when I'm starting with a completely new product that I haven't sold before, I want to make sure it costs as little as humanly possible. And the third thing I look for is making sure that it is something that is truly scalable. And I mean that in two senses. First is that there's enough demand, not just within the United States, but globally, for this to really scale long term. And second is that the supply chain or infrastructure around the product or products are able to keep up with that demand. And that was another mistake that I made early on, was when we finally had found a winning product that had lots of demand, all the economics made sense, we hadn't checked to make sure that our suppliers could keep up with that demand. And so we ended up quickly outpacing the capacity of our suppliers, which ended up biting us in the butt pretty bad, because we ended up having to refund a ton of customers. So now, before I even turn on the very first ad, I always make sure that the suppliers that we're working with have the capacity to actually fulfill the demand that we may bring them. So for all those reasons, and then many more, print on demand, specifically apparel, more specifically t-shirts, is the product that I go with 9 times out of 10 whenever I'm launching a new Shopify brand. And the reason for that is that it checks all the boxes that we just talked about. There is tons of demand for it, more now than ever. You might be surprised to learn that in the past, people would buy one or two high quality shirts that are a higher price point, last a decade. But nowadays there's something called fast fashion, which is a growing trend. It's been growing for the past decade, projected to grow for the next decade, which is the trend where people are buying just lower quality or lower price point products, and they would much rather have 10 t-shirts for the price of one than just the one t-shirt. So there's no shortage of demand when it comes to these products. Second, we are definitely able to differentiate ourselves because we are able to put unique custom designs that we make ourselves, either by working with a designer or with AI, to really stand out and differentiate ourselves in a somewhat crowded market. And lastly, we're certainly able to check the scalability box, because there are no shortage of supply chain infrastructure to be able to support any number of sales from companies like Printify, Printful. All of those, we can certainly count on them to be able to fulfill our orders. So it checks all those boxes. The demand is there. We're able to differentiate ourselves, and it's certainly scalable. And more than that, it's that everybody has dozens of shirts. And they're also extremely giftable. They're in the price point range where it's an impulse buy, but you can also build it around a specific niche or topic so that people are buying it for more than just like, hey, that's neat. Like for history tees, for example, we hit a very strong chord with people that were consider themselves history buffs, and when they bought a shirt from us, they weren't just buying it because, hey, that's a neat design. They were buying it because they considered themselves a history buff, and by buying that shirt and wearing it, that was like an expression of their own character and personality, and that, you know, meant something to them. Which one, like money and business aside, that's just cool to be able to be a part of that. And, you know, it feels like you're doing a lot more than just moving product around. You're actually impacting somebody at the end of the day. But also, it's a way to build a relationship with a customer. And all these drop shipping brands and, you know, Alibaba and stuff, like, you're not building a real relationship with people when you're drop shipping something from China. That's just generic crap, basically. So this way we get returning customer rate that builds 15 to 20% of our revenue at least comes from returning customers, which is huge. So that's how we chose our product, which was t-shirts, which, as generic as that sounds, we are not talking about like Etsy or merch by Amazon, like print on demand. It's completely different than what we're doing. We are building a legitimate e-commerce brand. It just so happens that we are starting with t-shirts, and it just so happens that we are fulfilling those t-shirts with print on demand as the fulfillment model. It's a subtle but really important difference to be aware of. Like merch by Amazon, Etsy, print on demand, those are like cash flow businesses. Like you are a print on demand seller in that realm, but over here you are building a legitimate e-commerce brand, but you just so happen to sell t-shirts and you just so happen to fulfill it with print on demand. And the reason that it's important to differentiate that is that there's so many different ways we can expand our product line down the road. Like Yoga Stay, for example, we started off just print on demand, just t-shirts, tank tops, that sort of thing. And then as the brand grew, we were able to introduce our own products like yoga mats and yoga pants, like the workout equipment, like that sort of thing. And you know, you can't do that on like just a Etsy print on demand or merch by Amazon. Like the reason we were able to do that was because we built up like a brand following as Yoga Stay. We built like a real business, as crazy as that sounds. So yeah, just the point I'm trying to make is that, you know, even though you start off selling t-shirts, that's not the brand, that's not the business. The business is the business. All right, but moving on. So second step that we follow is choosing a specific niche. And the reason that this is important is, like I alluded to with history tees, the reason it was so successful was that we found a specific group of people that we wanted to serve, and we spoke directly to them. We didn't just make it a general store. You know, it would have been easy to just come up with like a bunch of random like funny shirts and, you know, best-selling styles, and then just jam them all in the same store. That's not what we want. We want a branded feel that is like when people come to the store, they know what we're about. And so history tees, Yoga Stay, both of those are great examples of pick a niche and stick to that niche and be very disciplined in not expanding outside of that, at least in the very beginning, because your conversion rate, your average order value, your lifetime value of your customers, it's going to be substantially better to tie it to metrics if you go that route than if you go a generalist broad store. So pick a niche, you have your brand established, and third is making the actual designs to go on our products. So we went out on Etsy, Amazon, Pinterest, did a ton of research to see what were the people within this niche doing, like what were they buying, what jokes were they telling, what were they finding interesting. And then at the time to start making these designs, we used Dolly and Midjourney, that sort of thing. But now we use Mystic, which is designed specifically for print-on-demand sellers. So you can mass produce every print-on-demand design you could possibly need. Remove the background, upscale, all the features you need. You can go check it out at mysticpod.com. Anyway, so we use that to crank out a ton of designs, and then we move on to the next step. And our next step is running our testing Facebook ads. And this is the part that is probably the most scary to a lot of people. But as you can see here in our ad account, when we first started off, we did extremely low budgets and we just did a few testing campaigns just to get our feet wet. And you've never run ads before, you can go check out the 21-hour training. I show you step by step, ad by ad, exactly how to set things up. So you can go watch that. But all that you need to know is that in the beginning, our goal is just get some traffic to the store. And we were doing this to try to see what designs did best and, you know, which ones did just never talk about again. And we certainly found a couple of those. But the important piece, and this is where I would say a lot of people end up failing, is when you launch with your initial 75 to 100 designs with print on demand or whatever your first store is, your first collection is not going to do great. My first 10 didn't do great, but that's like the process where like rubber meets the road, money is actually made. And so with this store, we had some initial signs that were good, like some designs did okay, but what we had to very quickly do was look at those designs that were getting the best clicks, like cost per link click in 50 to 75 cent range, which ones were getting purchases, if there's any to speak of, and then look at those, like lay them all out in front of you, and then analyze them and say, like, okay, people are showing the most interest in these, they're showing no interest in these, what's the difference? And as reductive as that sounds, like, that's really the step that a lot of people skip over. It's because they get so caught up in the, I worked so hard on these 75 to 100 designs, like, it has to work, like, this has to be it. Like, no, the asset that you're building up is not the designs, it's you, and it's your skill set. So when we launched in the first couple of days, we looked at our top sellers, and we looked at the ones that nobody was buying, and we evaluated, found a couple of trends and themes, which, to give you a couple of quick hit things that normally do well is humor, puns specifically within whatever niche you're in, do really well. And then having a variety of designs. So there's some types of people that will only buy typography designs. There's some types of people that will only buy like aesthetic designs. Some people buy neither, but that's okay. That's just not your customer. And just really, if you lean into having a diverse collection, you'll likely find at least one or two designs that take off in the beginning. So after we run our testing ads, the last step to getting to our 100 sales was pretty much just letting our testing campaigns continue to run while we were building or designing a bunch of new products in the background. So we were adding new designs to the store just about every day. And as we did that day after day, we're not even talking a crazy amount, like 3 to 5 designs, we were able to build up our catalog, and that got us to the point that our ads were getting more and more profitable. And by the 10th day, we finally hit our 100th sale. I say finally, I know 10 days feels pretty quick, but also keep in mind, like, I've been doing this for a long time. The steps that I just ran through, that's pretty high level. That's why we have the 21-hour course. It's completely free to go follow along. If you've ever had any urge to start an e-commerce business, I highly recommend checking that out. Not because it's from me or anything, but because I know how alluring it can be, or seemingly be, to like buy a course from somebody who pitches it as the be-all end-all. I guarantee if you go through the 21-hour course, it has more details and more step-by-steps and like explains more fuck-ups that I've had, pardon my French, than any of those courses have. Go check it out. If you're planning on spending $1,000 on somebody's course, just message me, please, so I can talk you out of it. Hopefully you guys found this video useful. If you did, please leave a like and comment down below. Useful feedback so we know what videos to make more of. And comment down below also what you want to see more videos like in the future. If you have any topics or questions that stand out in your mind, I'm happy to film those as well. So anyways, appreciate you guys. Thank you for watching, and I'll talk to you soon.